If you like my videos, please check out my website at creationsciencefiction.com. You'll find articles on creationism there, as well as my blog. I also have a Creation Science Fiction Facebook page now, too. So I got a notification on YouTube that Frank Turek, author of I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, was taking live questions on the air on both Facebook and YouTube. I decided to see if I could get through to him and get an answer to a question that's really been bothering me.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cross-Examine Live Show. I'm your host, Jorge Gil, and tonight we have a special edition of the Cross-Examine Live Show. This is episode 10, and we're going to be bringing in Frank to answer your questions live, and we're also going to be talking about his brand new course. But without further ado, I want to bring in none other than Frank Turek. What's happening, Frank?
Jorge, you are the man. Now look at this guy. Look at this guy, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that beard. He is the most interesting man in apologetics.
I try to be, Frank. I try to be. I tell you, it's a little bit of work in the mornings. You know, after you get out of the shower, you have to get that dryer and you have to make sure that you dry it right to have it like this. But, you know, maybe I can do a tutorial on YouTube.
I didn't listen to most of it. I came in actually pretty late. I'm just going to skip to the part where I ask him a question.
Yeah, excellent. I got one here. I got asked, Frank. I've never heard such a question before. Bill Ludlow says, if the Earth is 6,000 years old and people rode dinosaurs, where are all the fossilized dinosaurs?
Look, I'm just absolutely convinced the universe is at least 57 years old, okay?
I think this was great, man.
Come on, give us a serious question.
Okay. Anyway.
Okay, so Frank Turek isn't a young Earth creationist, but it was still a good question. Just look at the look on his face when he realized what I was asking.
Look, I'm just absolutely...
I just love that guy's laugh. You know, it's actually pretty cool that we can laugh at young Earth creationists with old Earth creationists sometimes. I'm not a fan of Frank Turek's at all, though. I think his 4 questions for the reasons that he doesn't have enough faith to be an atheist are really weak. I also think he's really wishy-washy when it comes to the age of the Earth, and he's careful not to offend anyone.
I'm curious about whether carbon dating is factual, or is it true, or is it accurate as a comparison to trying to date the Earth, because some suggest 6,000 or thereabouts.
Yeah, the question is, how old is the universe? That's pretty much what the question is, and this is a question we get a lot. So,
well, that isn't exactly what the question was, but he has a presentation ready anytime anyone asks anything similar to that.
Well, let's take a look at the question, and just give me a couple minutes on this. How old is the universe? Let me say I'm absolutely certain, Jose, the universe is at least 56 years old. I might throw my dad in there. You say 65, my dad's 81, so it's at least that. This is a situation that Christians, or a question that Christians disagree over. But my point is no matter what view you take, you're making assumptions you can't prove. And let me show you why. If you think the Earth is old, you're assuming the speed of light has not changed. If the speed of light hasn't changed, the universe is 13.8 billion years old. If it has changed, we don't know how old the universe is. Now, is it a good assumption to say the speed of light has not changed? Yeah, probably. Why? Because if you change the speed of light, you have to change all the other laws of physics with it. You say, well, maybe God did that. Yeah, well, maybe he did, but now you're making an assumption you can't prove, right? How about salt in the ocean? The deposition rate is assumed to be unchanged. The beginning amount of salt and minerals is assumed to be 0. Some folks who think the Earth is young have tried to use this to say that the Earth is young, but now again, you're making assumptions you can't prove. How about carbon dating, what you brought up, or radioactive dating? The decay rate is assumed to be unchanged. In uranium dating, the beginning amount of lead is assumed to be 0. Now, these may all be good assumptions, but they're just that. They're assumptions.
You see what he's doing there is he's appeasing any young Earth creationist that might be in the audience. He's afraid to take a stance because that might cost him sales.
My view is the Bible doesn't say how old the universe is. Now, if you want more on this, I highly recommend you get a book by John Lennox, the Oxford professor. It's called 7 Days That Divide the World. Now, even if you think the days do have something to do with the age of the universe, the word day in Genesis could mean longer periods of time. In fact, it has 4 possible usages in the first chapter and a half. Also, the third day seems to require longer than 24 hours, the growth of vegetation and fruit-bearing plants. Even if you put Miracle Grow on that stuff, it doesn't grow that quickly. You say, well, maybe God sped it up. Now again, you might be right, but you're making assumptions you can't prove. The 6th day seems to require longer than 24 hours, the naming of the animals. In fact, Adam begins to name the animals late in the 6th day. Doesn't seem like he'd have enough time to name them all. There were a lot of animals even in his day. In fact, Brad Stein, a Christian comedian, kind of has a bit on this. He says, when Adam first started naming the animals, he was real creative. He'd see an animal come by and he'd go, hippopotamus. Another one come by, rhinoceros, by the end of the day. It's a cow. Ox. You know, he's just run out of gas.
Okay, that was pretty funny, but why not take a stance?
To tell you the truth, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other.
Well, it should.
I think
as long as you got
is
people
better,
out there
old,
like Ken Ham and Kent Hovind teaching the earth is 6,000 years old and people rode dinosaurs, you're going to continue to get questions like the one I asked you.
Look, I'm just absolutely...
You know, I'm not a big fan of William Lane Craig either, but at least he has the balls to say what needs to be said.
45% of Americans believe that the earth is less than 10,000 years old. That is almost half. And so this big percentage of Americans, I don't know how many of them would be Christians, probably a large amount, because some of these Americans may not even be Christians, but they just have this biblical understanding that they've heard. The conflict is, it's very incompatible, Colin says, with what scientists have learned from physics, chemistry, cosmology, biology, geology. And so there is kind of a tension here between this large portion of the populace and the science, and even a Christian view of how science could possibly be.
Yes, I've seen a comparable statistic that says that over 50% of evangelical pastors think that the world is less than 10,000 years old. Now, when you think about that, Kevin, that is just hugely embarrassing that over half of our ministers really believe that the universe is only around 10,000 years old. This is just scientifically, it's nonsense, and yet this is the view that the majority of our pastors hold. It's really quite shocking when you think about it.
The young people in their congregations are not going to buy that, and
No.
A lot of thinking people are just not. And they're going to be more informed than that pastor if they study this area. You know?
Yes, and because they're convinced that the pastor is right, that the Bible teaches this, but they're convinced by their geology teacher or the earth science teacher that the world is older than that, that means give up the Bible and walk away from the Christian faith.
You know, a lot of atheists are almost happy that there's guys like Ken Ham and Kent Hovind out there because they're creating more atheists as these children grow up. I'm more the opinion that any young mind is a terrible thing to waste, and guys like Frank Turek need to start caring one way or another, especially when it comes to what these young Christian children are being taught.